Okay, here's a video on a problem I ran into on my Isetta. I was getting my shocks rebuilt. I didn't know how to rebuild them, couldn't find nobody to rebuild them. This is the original shock. Leaking oil pretty bad. Other than that, it's in real nice shape. And what I did was I went and I got another shock, a new one. This shock, you can see the end is different. But size-wise, they are the same. The holes line up the same. They meet up the same length up here. And actually the throw from where I cut this off, I cut this ball off, to these threads is the same throw that the original shock has. So like I said, I cut that end off and I got another bolt, which is a different thread than the original. The original is an M10, like a 10 millimeter, with a 1.0 pitch thread. Well, those are almost impossible to find. So I bought a bolt that was an M10 with a 1.25 pitch, and I cut the, whoops, you can see I cut the head off the bolt, and you got 1.5 inches of thread, which is what you have here. So they're the same threads. And what I did was when I cut this off, I welded it to the end of that. And here's my completed shock. You can see here where I welded the bolt onto the end of it, and then I retapped this aluminum piece. That's the original one. It has the original threads inside to fit the original shock. What I did is I retapped them with a 1.25 tap to fit the new one. And then when I welded it on, then this, of course, threaded on like it did originally. And then, I got the original cap with the rubber. And then instead of the double jam nut like the original ones have, I opted to upgrade to a nylon nut. And then what I did is I cut a slot in the top of the new bolt that I put on, which is like this, but this one doesn't have the slot in it yet. I cut a slot in it just like the original one has, so that you can put a screwdriver in there and hold it while you're tightening up the nut. But I opted for a nylon self-locking nut rather than a double jam nut. A little cleaner look, and I trust the nylon ones. The original rubbers fit onto this shock. Everything was the same. The next problem I ran into was the original shock actually has a disc that sits on it, and it goes down, and the spring, the coil spring, sits on top of that so that it can't ride down. Well, the new shock, surprise, surprise, does not have that. It's not designed for an Isetta. So what I did was, being as the tube was almost the same length, this doesn't fit this tube. This one's a little bit bigger. So what I did was I got a really big washer, and I plasma cutted the center out so I had a nice ring. And then this one, it won't fit over these things here, but once you cut it off, once you cut this off, it fits over and it slides down until you get the same height from the bolt to the base of the spring. You do the same thing here. You measure from the bolt to the base of the spring where this goes, and then what you do is you weld it on. Make sure you got good weld so that your spring doesn't knock it off. Mine's welded really well. I'd be very careful not to heat the shock up. I did it slowly, one weld, cooled it down, another weld, cooled it down. The spring fits on it perfect. The shock fits up inside of the spring. Probably the only thing other than that I'm not going to put on is the original shock has a plastic shield that goes on it. Well, I don't have those, so I'm not going to put them on. But I think that this upgrade is going to be a very good upgrade for me. It wasn't too awful expensive in the sense that I couldn't find original shocks anymore, and I couldn't get these ones rebuilt. So hopefully this helps out anybody else that's having trouble with their shocks. These are the front shocks, obviously, but anybody else is having trouble, can't get them rebuilt or can't find good ones. This is what I did. These shocks actually fit a 1978 Arctic Cat snowmobile, and they go on the front skis. They're the shock dampeners for the front skis. They have plenty of shock dampening for what my Isetta is going to need, so I'm not concerned about that. But that's what they fit. The part number, when I looked it up in the catalog, was a and I'm going to get it wrong. I think it was a 1016. B1016, I think is what it was. And, you know, if you have any other questions, you know, go ahead and leave me a message, and I'll get that number exact for you. But I'm pretty sure that's what it was a B1016. And that was the part number for the shock. Everything else we just modified ourselves, and you know, that's what we have here is a nice, you know, brand new, you know, fully sealed functioning shock for the front of the Isetta. Hopefully this helps you guys. Thanks for looking. Bye-bye.